College football is in full swing, so we're back on the Big Mountain to update you on the TBM Power Rankings.
Hey, welcome back to the Big Mountain. We are going to do another Power Rankings episode where we take all of the Big Ten teams, all of the Mountain West teams, the PAC-12, and Florida State University. We've had people say, why are you adding Florida State? And I'll remind everyone again, because Steve believes that Florida State will become a member of the Big Ten here in the not too distant future. We're not saying imminent, but, maybe by 2030, something like that. So that's why they're involved in all this as well. And as you can see, we're doing this a little bit differently. We're not in studio. I'm still in Texas. I've got a rodeo behind me. This is the rodeo that's down in Fort Worth at the stockyards. My son and I, were able to see that. And Steve's back in our neck of the woods. But, the show must go on, Steve.
Yeah, college football goes on, so the Big Mountain goes on.
There you have it. Well, let's get right into it. I'll throw the slides up while we're doing this. I'll start with the bottom, and we'll work our way up. So starting at 33, that's the number of teams that we do. We have Oregon State again. They are at the bottom of the pack. They did get a win finally against Lafayette, but still just a one-win team. Nevada, another one-win team here at 32. Continually kind of the bottom two here for our power rankings. Then we have Wisconsin dropping down, Colorado State at 30, Purdue at 29, San Jose State, a big mover to the negative from 2 weeks ago. They're down to 28. Then Wyoming holding steady at 27, Rutgers at 26, Air Force moving up to 25, Washington State at 24, New Mexico to 23, San Diego State moving up slowly but surely. They're up into 22nd. And then Northwestern just out of the middle group, sitting there at 21. They've had some nice wins here as of late, Steve. Which schools do you want to talk about?
I don't know if there's really anything that jumps out at me too much. The bottom group, I think they've established themselves there for the most part. Other than, I guess San Jose State there at 28th. I believe they dropped down 9 spots.
Right.
That's a team we were really high on coming into the season. Really thought they had a chance to play for a Mountain West title this year. And it's just kind of been, I think, a little sad to see them drop, throughout the season. So I think that's probably, the biggest thing that jumps out. Now, I will say, like you mentioned, Northwestern, they played some good games here. Even earlier in the season with some losses, they were pretty scrappy against Oregon. That big upset at Penn State. This is a team, if they keep this momentum going, we could see them climb up into the top half of our rankings.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about some of the ups and downs. So you mentioned San Jose State. They're down 9 positions from before. I kind of kept giving them the benefit of the doubt in our early rankings, because I thought they were going to be a good team. I mean, for those that know, what I've been predicting, I had them in the Mountain West Championship game. That is not going to happen now. I think the reality of where they're at has set in, and they've had a lot of very close games, but they're not getting the wins. And if you're not getting the wins, coulda, woulda, shoulda, excuses this, excuses that. I still think they have a fantastic offense, but all the way down in 28th, blown away. If you would have told me we had him at 28th halfway through the season, I would have laughed at you 6 weeks ago. But there they are. Also down 4 is Rutgers. But to the upside, you mentioned Northwestern. They're up 4. As you said, they may, if they continue on, they'll push into that top 20. And Air Force up 5 after they get a win versus Wyoming. And they've just had a lot of close losses. They're not a bad team. I know they're a 2-win team. San Jose State's a 2-win team. They have a lot of 2-win teams kind of down in here. But Air Force is a strong team. I wouldn't be surprised if they knock, some wins out here in the Mountain West schedule moving forward. And, I know Wyoming fans were disappointed in that, but that's a good Air Force team that they lost to. The only thing I want to say here, Steve, is Washington State was our biggest discrepancy probably of the entire year so far. We were different by 15. I had them all the way up in 15th. You had them all the way down in 30th. And I gave them a lot of credit for the last 2 weeks. Yes, they were losses, but very close losses to ranked teams, Ole Miss and Virginia. So maybe I was a little heavy on them at 15, but they've really impressed me this year. The record isn't great, but they had some close games against some very difficult competition.
Yeah, they did. They had a couple close losses there. Early in the season, they had, they were beaten pretty good by some teams, but now they've had two close losses in a row. They're a school I don't really know what to do with yet. Now, I was looking at their schedule coming up. They got 2 games against the Beavs. They had some other games that are not very hard, that are good possibilities to get wins. So if they start cranking out some wins here, they're definitely going to climb up, and I'll probably bring them up to, closer to where you have them. So there's a lot of opportunities for them. And when you compare schools like Air Force, Washington State, it's how much credit do you give for a close loss?
Right.
The other team beat them, or how, because Air Force had a lot of close losses. People will say, well, who did they beat? Well, they only beat Wyoming so far for Air Force, I think, or do they have a couple other wins?
They beat Bucknell as well.
Yeah. So, but Air Force has a ton of close losses to teams. Like they could easily have 3 more wins, maybe 4 more wins with some of these close losses. So both of those teams I'm going to have my eye on. The other team, San Diego State, they've racked up a lot of wins this season. And if they can get some more, we're going to have to move them up as well. Like I think both of those, Washington State, San Diego State are two where if they keep winning games, we're going to have to move them up.
Everybody in that front column there, Northwestern, San Diego State, New Mexico, Washington State, all has the potential, I think, to definitely move up in the coming weeks. And the Aztec schedule definitely gets much more difficult here towards the end of the schedule. So I'm going to let you take the middle group here, Steve. Have at it.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got Maryland at 20, Penn State at 19, Florida State at 18, Michigan State at 17, Utah State at 16, UCLA at 15, Fresno at 14, UNLV coming off of that not a close loss, but a loss to Boise, Hawaii at 12, Nebraska at 11. I think this is just kind of a fair group. Like there's some teams that we had lower that have moved up, and some teams that were up near the top that have really dropped like a rock. So we have both Penn State and Florida State in there. They both, I think, have lost 4 games in a row. A UCLA team, that's one I think we disagreed on quite a bit as well, if I remember from our notes. We were 8 spots different on them.
Yes.
That's a team. It's hard. That's another team that's hard to figure out because they start the season 0-3, 0-4. They've won 3 or 4 in a row now, and like they're looking good. I mean, you look at their offense, man, and it's looking like it's a tale of 2 teams. They had the team under Coach Foster, and now they have this new looking team with a new play caller, new head coach, and they're on the rise. If they can keep racking up some wins throughout the season, we'll probably have to move them up. But UNLV, how much do you penalize them for losing? Boise's just a better team. I think we said that all year that we expected them probably to lose because Boise was just a little bit better. That's their only loss. And if you look at they could be 11-1 at the end of the season, maybe not make the Mountain West Championship game, or maybe get a rematch with Boise. So I think for the most part, we got this section. It's just, how much is UCLA going to keep rising? What do we do with UNLV? Because if they end up 11-1 at the end of the season, like that's a good season for them.
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned UCLA. It was the one of the ones we disagreed on, and it was mainly the same type of deal. Like, what do I do with them? They are playing great right now, but I have to take into account how they started. So we were off 8, but if they continue to play the way they are, I mean, they could be getting close to that top 10. So they're up 8, and Hawaii was up 8. They're looking fantastic again. I said it over and over, but fantastic offense. They had that one close loss to Fresno State. I mean, honestly, if they would have beaten Fresno State, they may be pushing top 10 right now for us because we're pretty high on that team. I'm not sure I would have said Hawaii was going to be at 12 in our power rankings. I figured they'd be pretty good, but I'm not sure if I would have had them at 12th here after 8 weeks. So good on those 2 teams. In terms of the downside, Florida State and Penn State just continuing to drop. Florida State here down 7, Penn State down 10. I think I said San Jose State was the biggest mover, but Penn State actually the biggest mover here down to 10. And we're going to have to kind of see where they land, where things maybe settle down here a little bit. A close loss to Iowa. Iowa's good. We have them in the top 10. But again, I think that's just a team we're going to have to just kind of gauge what happens here moving forward. But we have 2 teams here that fell down out of the top 10, Steve. They are Nebraska, who we have here at 11, so just out of the top 10, but they dropped out. And we have Penn State, obviously, out of the top 10. So you're going to see two new teams into the top 10 coming up. Do you have anything else on this group?
Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about those two teams you just mentioned. So Penn State, they're in a bye this week. However, when they come back from the bye, do you know what their next two games are? Ohio
Indy's
State.
Probably one of them.
Yes, Ohio State and Indiana, the number one, number two teams in the country right now, back to back, they're going to be playing. So that's not going to be easy. So you got to foresee two more losses on there. Now we'll see what those losses look like. If they, if they play Ohio State like they did last year, then but Indiana has shown they can blow people out. So if we see two blowouts, that could be more dropping from them. Yeah. And at this point, their season's pretty much over. It's just these guys see how long they can hang on and play together. And then Nebraska, man, what a huge. I mean, they're only down to 11th, but what a huge disappointment for them. They have that game with Minnie. If they win that game, they're still on track to compete for a playoff spot. They have one of the easier schedules. That Cincinnati win, they beat them week 1, is looking better and better because that's Cincinnati's only loss, and they're looking to make a run possibly in the Big 12. But just a huge missed opportunity for them. I mean, the difference between competing for a CFP spot and now they're looking like one of the just middle of the pack Big 10 teams.
Crazy how things can change in just a few weeks, for sure. So let's move to our top 10. I'll take the next 5 here. We have Minnesota. You're just talking about them. That's a new team into the top 10, as is Boise moving up into the top 10 after their pretty convincing win over UNLV. They do have 2 losses against 2 very, very good teams. We do G6 rankings every other week, and we've got USF right there as number 1. Then we've got Iowa as 8. They've been hovering right here in the bottom group of the top 10. Washington at 7. Michigan hanging right in there at 6, Steve. So we got one Mountain West team moving up into our top 10. Not too surprising. It's Boise. Maybe some people think as a 2-loss team that we're overrating them here maybe slightly. But what are your thoughts here in this group?
I'm kind of surprised to see Minnie. I mean, I was high on Minnie coming in to this season. I thought they'd have another nice season. A little surprised that they beat Nebraska, but they did, and they deserve it. So I think they deserve their spot in the Big 10 or in the top 10. Same with Boise. I mean, they had that match, the game of the year again in the Mountain West, and they won the game. And they're only 2 losses this season. And again, I'll say this again. The Boise fans kind of frustrate me because they always go back to that Notre Dame loss and, oh, woe is me, and yeah, that's probably going to keep them out of a chance to get into the CFB. But there's no shame in those 2 losses. USF, really, really good G6 program. A Notre Dame team that's most likely going to be a playoff team again this year and has a lot of talent. So I think they're right where they should be. We said whoever wins that Boise UNLV game was probably going to have a shot to get up into our top 10 and has got to be the front runner in the Mountain West the rest of the season. So Iowa's just hanging around there. Washington kind of hanging around. And Michigan, a team I was down on early in the season, they've had their ups and downs. They took a big loss to USC a couple weeks ago, but they came back with another just physical win and basically looking like they did a couple years ago where they could dominate both sides of the offensive line, defensive line, and just play physical. I still think maybe they're hindering Bryce Underwood a little bit, kind of holding him back a little bit. We'll see how he develops from this year into next year. But they can basically just out physical most teams, on the running game and on the defensive line. And that's kind of what they're doing. Nothing spectacular, but just kind of hanging around there. So I think they deserve their spot there at 6.
I agree. Well, I am going to let you take the top 5, and we have another tie at first, just like last week. So have at it there, Steve.
Yeah. So USC coming in there at 5. Disappointing loss to Notre Dame. Not really a bad loss. I mean, they were hanging in there, but at a certain point, they just could not. That Notre Dame running game is absolutely ridiculous. I didn't look at the yards in between. They had a kickoff return for 100 yards from one of their running backs, and anytime they ran the ball, they were just getting yards after yards. USC couldn't hold up to that. There's not very many teams in the country, I think, right now that could hold up to that running game. That's what's looking really good for Notre Dame. So they're there at 5. Illinois at 4. Oregon at 3. like you mentioned, tied for first yet again. We have Ohio State and Indiana. You've had Ohio State first all season.
Yep.
Indiana, after that big win over a pretty good Illinois team, the huge win, just destroyed them. I put them in first, and I've had them in first since then. And I don't think nothing's happened since then that's changed either one of our minds. So,
Right.
we'll see going on. I mean, you have to look at these two teams, Ohio State and Indiana, as they don't play in the regular season. They keep on this track. They're going to play in the Big Ten championship game, and then we'll know, who's the better team. I did see this week on the narrative about Indiana the last 2 years or year and a half was, oh, they have an easy schedule. Oh, they have an easy schedule. Well, ESPN put out their top 5 teams of strength of record. So they combine your strength of schedule plus what did you do with that? How badly did you beat the teams?
Okay.
And number 1 was Texas A&M. Indiana was second. Ohio State was right there in the top 5. So nobody can say Indiana isn't having a tough schedule, having a good season. You're not going to hear much of that this year, I don't think.
Well, hopefully not. I mean, I'm certain people I think will still say it because they just have to beat that drum for certain reasons. But yeah, I mean, I think it's appropriate. We do these, as I say every week, we do these completely separately, and then we do the average. I think it's totally appropriate. We have these two teams tied for first. I hope they do meet in the Big Ten championship, and then we can decide it on the field who's the better team. And I would just say what we mentioned, the two teams that broke into the top 10, Boise and Minnesota, they both moved up 4 from our last ranking. So, everybody 1 through 8 here has kind of been in that top 10 here most of the year. They up and down a few, but nothing major. But Minnesota and Boise moving up 4 positions here each. And you had actually USC up in your top 4. You're pretty high there on USC. You had Illinois at 5, but again, it's one of those things. How do you average a loss versus the win, and the big loss and the big win? And these are all good teams. I mean, to me, the top 6, 7, 8 here are pretty easy number. The top 7 or 8 for me, they are anyway. And honestly, I almost would draw the line. I know you're high on Washington. I almost would draw the line at 6, like from Michigan up to me. Those are maybe the cream of the crop, where that 7, 8, 9, 10 are kind of just a smidgen, below. I don't know where you would potentially draw a line.
I think so. Honestly, I think there's kind of 2 lines there. For a while, we had Ohio State, Indiana, and Oregon kind of like okay, they're the triplets at the top.
Yeah.
I think that win over Indiana at Oregon, I think that establishes like the top 2, Ohio State and Indiana. And then I would say, yeah, there's that group of probably Oregon, Illinois, USC. Maybe you throw Michigan in, maybe you don't. I'm not sure. But really kind of the way we have them on our graphic, the top 2, that middle group, and then that last group. I think, to me, that's how I would divide it, honestly, how you already divided it. And I agree with you. Washington, they got a lot of talent. That young quarterback is really good. I think with some of their tougher games, like especially against Michigan, they kind of showed they're not ready for prime time yet. I thought maybe they'd be able to compete for a CFP spot. They're still a really good team, really talented. I think they need another year yet.
Very good. Well, I dropped some comments down below. Let us know what you think. I'll throw them all back up here from 33 all the way back up to number 1. Put your comments below. Tell us which teams maybe we were too high on, maybe which teams we're sleeping on a bit too much. And, maybe overall you think you agree with everything. I think usually our comments, people seem to think we, got it about right. Of course, you can, move 1 or 2 spots, but, is there any, probably the biggest ones? I'd love to hear people, UNLV and UCLA. Where would you have them right now? Because they had, they're interesting. Kind of a big loss there for UNLV, and UCLA looking, like you said, a completely different team than they were to start the season.
Yep, I agree. And one thing, we're about halfway through the season. The first CFP rankings are going to come out here, I think, at maybe the first week in November. That's going to be interesting. Is how do obviously we don't have all the teams in the country, but how do our rankings kind of shape up? You look at our rankings right now, and I'm going to say the top 3 are in the CFP would be now if they did the rankings. So I'm interested to see when those rankings come out, we can compare them to ours.
I agree. I'm gonna say our top 3: Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon are in the CFP, and I'm gonna say there's only 3 here to start. with the Big Ten. But we'll see. We're not in the CFP. We should be, but we're not. So, hey, with that, we thank you guys for watching this. Make sure you smash that like button. Subscribe if you like our content. I'll be back next week with my good friend Steve in bed in the studio doing what we do best. But hey, we thank you guys for watching this one, and we'll see you next time on the Big Mountain.